Hello everyone, Zait here. It's almost that time of the year again when I disappoint certain American friends by not really giving a fuck about Halloween. So here's the short version on the matter. Back when I was a kid, so in the late 90s, early 2000s, Halloween was not really that big of a deal in Finland. Or at least not in my region and the schools that I went to, and as far as I know, it still really isn't. Anyways, I remember as a kid reading or hearing about Halloween and how it would be celebrated with candy and, dressing up in a costume. And so one year for Halloween, I dressed up as a witch, I think. And let's just say that I've never done dress up like that for any annual occasion like that ever again. Or well, I probably did dress up as an Easter witch a couple more times, even after that incident, but I didn't dress up for school. And yeah, more about the Easter stuff later. Anyways, while we do get the Halloween ads and some stuff in the stores, there's nothing really major for Halloween. I mean, I think it was in late September this year when we already started getting whole sections in stores, shelf row after row for Christmas candies and chocolates and decorations. And then there's usually just this one random narrow shelf for Halloween candy and decorations. And they kind of remind me of those shelves where stores put away things that are off for like 50% discount and they kind of look like throwaway items, nobody wanted them. And I do know there's like a few specialty stores where you can probably find more stuff like the decorations and costumes. I know there's one costume store in Jyväskylä, and I just saw one in Helsinki, and they definitely had Halloween stuff up. But then, of course, there's Flying Tiger of Copenhagen. You can find some stuff there. But yeah, while I've spotted some ads on TV and radio for Halloween recently, it's nothing big. And kids don't go trick-or-treating for Halloween here. We do that stuff on Easter, on Palm Sunday. And I can talk more about that closer to Easter, but let's just say that as far as I know, Halloween isn't really seen as a kid's occasion here. It's more for young adults to dress up and get drunk, it's especially popular among students, I think, Any reason to go out drinking as a student is, But yeah, I might be wrong about all that, so let's look into the history and customs of Halloween in Finland together now. As usual, source links will be in the description. So, some history of Halloween in Finland and some current customs. From Junction City, Skandia, you may find a private Halloween party in Finland with masks, sweets and a spooky story or two, though it's not a popular holiday. All Saints' Day is more commonly observed in Finland, and more about that a bit later. Prior to Halloween, the Finns were celebrating the holiday of Kekri, which does not have an exact date of celebration. The time of Kekri was set by the farming schedule and would often line up with the end of harvest. This holiday aligned eventually with All Saints' Day, where Finns would light candles and honor their dead. During the time of Kekri, which has been celebrated since ancient times, people would often wear formal clothes, gather around a bonfire with friends and family, sharing myths and legends, and even invite their dead to the festivities. As industry has taken hold in Finland and the farming society has lessened, so have the customs of Kekri, though it can be still found observed in some rural parts of Finland. So, what on earth is Kekri and what's All Saints' Day? According to Finland Naturally and foreigners in Finland, Kekri is a Finnish harvest celebration when even ghosts go to sauna and it was one of the biggest fests of the year. Kekri Fest has its roots that date back to Iron Age, so over 2000 years ago. The etymology of Kekri stems from an old Fenno-Ugrian word kekra, kerai, I don't know how to pronounce that one, but that means cycle. Kekri was also known by the names keuri, kouri, kouru, and köri. And I've actually heard the word köri being used as referring to a group of people. You know? Anyways. Back in the old times, it was natural to have a fest connected to earth and harvest, and this was also considered the end of the year fest as well. The celebration, as mentioned before, did not originally have an exact calendar date since it depended on the farming activities. So each household celebrated according to their own schedule based on when they were finished with harvest. In a single area, Kekri might last for several days as households celebrated one at a time. Later, in the early 1800s, the date was introduced and determined at the beginning of November, which is the All Saints' Day, also known as All Hallows' Day, a Christian festival. People dressed in formal clothes and visited family and friends. The festivity included bonfires, magic and curse, belief and myths, and each family invited their dead to Kekri. These customs have started to vanish since industrialization. Young people used to dress up as a creature with horns called kekripukki, pukki meaning goat, and a fur coat worn upside down, walking from house to house asking for feasting or beer. Ah yes, the alcoholism stems back centuries. If a household refused to host the kekripukki, the goat would threaten to break their oven. Today there's still a kekri goat made of straws that gets burned during the harvest fest. According to this article anyway, I've never heard of this happening in Finland before. I know about that one straw goat in Sweden that is usually very unlucky. Is it the summer goat or is it for Christmas? Either way, it usually gets lit up, on fire. I think this year, didn't it survive? Or was it last year? Anyways, apparently there's such a tradition in Kajaani and Suomenlinna, which is near Helsinki. I can show them on the map. Anyways, kekripukki is supposedly one of the origins of Santa Claus. Many of the traditions associated with Kekri are now associated with Christmas and how it's celebrated in Finland. For example, Santa Claus, who is called joulupukki, which means the Christmas goat in Finnish, is based on kekripukki. Finns also traditionally decorate their houses with decorations made of straw. That also has its roots in Kekri. And well, while I've definitely seen some straw decorations, especially in households who are very traditional or have very elderly people in the family, the straw is not that important these days, I do have one straw decoration for Christmas myself. It's this angel that you can put on top of the Christmas tree. And I definitely received it from someone who is older than me, but yeah, that's the only straw decoration that I have for Christmas. But anyways, now, ghosts and sauna. And I hope this doesn't scare people away from going into the sauna, trying it for the first time or going again. Some of you might already know this, but sauna has always been a rather sacred space, you could say, for us Finns, associated with mythical and spiritual beliefs. It has served as a boundary between life and death, as in old days women would give a birth in the sauna because it was the most hygienic place to do so, and before burying someone, their body would be washed in a sauna. And these spiritual associations come from Well, when you throw water on the rocks of the sauna stove, I can speak, yeah, it produces steam that we call löyly. And löyly can refer to life force, the soul, and the spirit. During the harvest season, it was thought to be the time when the spirits and souls of the people who had passed came back for a visit. Sauna was offered to those spirits before any living person was allowed to go there, and it was prepared with towels, water, soap, and everything a living person would need. After bathing, it was time for a feast. The house folk left a table full of food and drink and went to sauna themselves to leave space and peace for the spirits to enjoy the meal. And this was done because the people believed that if they were able to keep the spirits happy, they'd protect the family's land, which was quite important to receive such protection, considering the harsh environment, the weather conditions, the wildlife, there's bears, there's wolves. So yeah. And there's also this belief about saunatonttu, sauna gnome. A few words about saunatonttu. So there's a lot here, but saunatonttu are basically the spirits, gnome or elf-like creatures in Finnish mythology. And they're just one part of different protective spirits, guardian spirits, if you want to say, helping or protecting something or somebody. There's a lot here regarding, the beliefs related to them, the etymology about these words. But tonttu is related to the word tontti, which means building lot, building site, or, your property, house property in general. And it was believed that each home, each building had its own elf or gnome, a protective spirit, taking care of the house, and it was important to treat your gnome with respect. And so sauna, of course, had its own tonttu as well, living there, protecting it, but also making sure that people did not behave improperly in the sauna. Because, there's etiquette to follow while you're in there. And this was even more important in the past times, but I still think there's some that are still practiced today. Anyways, so it was also believed that some of these gnome elf-like creatures were divided into races or folks, which in Finnish were called väki. And väki can have different meanings depending on the context, like a group of people, folks, but also strength or power. And so there were different groups of gnomes, and they were believed to be related to nature, and there were also gnomes of death, or folks of death. Let's see, ghosts and spirits, and the magical power that can be found in a graveyard. And this power can make people ill, and it can also be used against other people. Meanwhile, sauna gnomes are related to fire. They're spirits of fire. Also, referring to the destructive forces of fire and the healing power of warm air. So that's why sauna gnomes are, related to fire. Because it can both destroy you and heal you. But yeah, there's plenty more of those, so I can definitely make a separate video on that if you're interested to hear more about it. But this was a quick, slightly clumsy rundown of the gnomes part. As for other kekri decorations, it was common to carve a turnip and put a small candle inside, similarly to how Americans do with pumpkins. because, you know, pumpkins weren't even known in Europe before colonialism. Anyways, next let's talk a little bit about All Saints' Day and why the traditions of All Saints' Day are probably the reason why Finns don't really celebrate Halloween the same way as some other nations do. So, All Saints' Day, or All Hallows' Eve, which in Finnish is Pyhäinpäivä, is on the first Saturday after the 30th of October. On this day, many people go to the cemetery in the evening to bring candles to remember their loved ones who have passed. If you live away from your beloved ones who have passed or are otherwise out of town, some, if not all, cemeteries in Finland should have a spot where people can leave a candle for those who have been buried elsewhere. This, I think, is generally known by the name Muualle haudattujen muistomerkki, which means memorial to those who have been buried elsewhere. Some might also light a candle indoors at their homes next to a photograph of someone they have recently lost. Overall, the day is considered a solemn, quiet day with no parties involved or going door to door asking for sweets. So yeah, that's probably why Halloween is celebrated a little differently, or maybe kind of just don't celebrate Halloween, but we do, a lot of us do observe All Saints' Day. For example, I try to go to a cemetery, and because I live far away from people who my family have lost, I, you know, leave a candle to the to that memorial. But okay, so that was the heavy part of this video. Now, about trick-or-treating, it still hasn't found a foothold in Finland. According to Finwords, and I really disagree with this article, celebrating Halloween in Finland started in daycare centers and schools, where children had parties where they could dress up, have fun, and eat tons of candy. Halloween in Finland is still mostly a party for the kids and still mostly at schools and daycare centers. And again, I disagree. Like I said earlier in the first part of the video, not in my schools, not in my daycare center, you know. And that's why when I dressed up for Halloween and I was so mortified that no one else was dressed up, I decided I'm never doing that again. And that was in basic education and high school. We did have some parties during university, but I didn't attend, again, because, you know, I don't really do costumes. I don't really do role-playing either. Those of you who have tried to play D&D with me know that I'm not very good at that. But yeah, if someone else has had a different experience, cool. I'm also a little bit of a scaredy cat, so I get spooked easily. I don't really I do sometimes enjoy watching a horror movie or reading horror fiction, and I've even written some stuff myself. But I used to see very horrible nightmares, and things would easily get stuck into my head, and I still sometimes get spooked if I see my reflection on a window, and I'm like, you know, chomping, like, who is standing on my balcony, you know? And it's just my own reflection. So yeah, the scary side of Halloween doesn't really excite me all that much, doesn't really interest me. And the candy isn't all that special or different from the usual stuff either, so basically it just feels like another special day that's just another attempt to squeeze more money out of people by making them buy more items they most likely don't even need. The same goes for Valentine's Day, which is also not observed the same in Finland as it's in places like the States. And I can talk more about that closer to February. And I did live in Ireland for a while, and I think in Ireland they do celebrate Halloween pretty similarly to the States, I guess, you know, with trick-or-treating and decorations. And so while I lived in Cork, my housemate, she really wanted to, you know, get some decorations. And well, we did get this one sticker of a vampire Dracula and some bats around him for the living room window. And it probably stayed there until we left a few months later. I might still have a picture of it. I'll probably put it in this video if I can find it. I have 14,000 photos on my phone, so anyway. And so my housemate also bought a lot of candy for, you know, any kids that would come by trick-or-treating. However, because of COVID restrictions, we ended up with a lot of candy no one wanted. Like, I think some neighbors' kids, they did come by. That was just a few kids, you know, and we had this plastic pumpkin-shaped bowl where, you know, there were tons of candy, and I think they stayed there until we moved out. Also, I do have to say about Kekri that up until like 7th grade, so when I was like 13, I had never even heard the word Kekri. I had never even heard about the tradition until a teacher, a Finnish teacher, brought it up, you know, because she was really into all things like classic Finnish literature and you know, traditions and stuff like that. And I think she tried arranging this Kekri event for the school. I don't remember the details too well because, you know, that was 100 years ago. Anyways, and it was just so awkward in a way, and she was trying to like promote it as something that we should uphold instead of taking up this American tradition, what she saw as American. But yeah, it was just awkward, and I don't think anyone really enjoyed it a whole lot, if I remember right. And yeah, but yeah, like mentioned before, and like it was mentioned in the articles as well, that it is a lost tradition, or at least a disappearing tradition. Anyways, that's about all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please hit that like button and scare the crap out of it. If you've got experiences of a Finnish Halloween, feel free to share in the comments, or if I said something that's incorrect, despite, you know, researching stuff and looking things up, please correct me. Take care, everyone, and stay safe. Don't eat too much candy or drink too much alcohol of your choice. Bye.